For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Shannon de Rehove. Well-known entrepreneur Herman Mashaba joins me to discuss his latest book, Capitalist Crusader, which provides solutions for fighting poverty through economic growth. Please provide a brief explanation of why you believe South Africans should embrace true capitalism and reverse the erosion of democratic values and economic freedom.
I think if you really look at successful nations all over the world, are those that pursue free market economy. And I think if we'd like South Africa to really be one of those nations that can really help to arrest the spiral of high unemployment in our country, it can only happen if we pursue free market economy. And yes, and I think for me that's really actually quite important, because I think as a country we don't just want to live, we want to be successful. And success comes from economic growth. And economic growth can only be driven through free markets. And I think that's really what we need to really do in this country. We need less government involvement, particularly in our economic sphere. Yes, absolutely, government is important to really play the role of really being the referee, to ensuring that there's a rule of law, because for free markets to be able to operate properly, you need an effective government in terms of ensuring that there's a rule of law in the country. That our personal safety is ensured, because I think you really need, you want to live in a country where, your personal safety is guaranteed. And that's really the role that we really want government to play.
In the introduction to your book, Yuri Maltsev describes the theme of Capitalist Crusader as the notion of the wholeness of human freedom, economic, cultural, and political. What do you think of this observation?
Well, I think, for me, I actually take the capitalist system as a natural system for mankind. I think all of us brought into this world, our survival is dependent on us actually really using our own talents, our own intelligence, intellect to really be able to really operate on our own without dependent on the next person. Absolutely, you reach a stage in your life or development where you can really really be in a fortunate position to help other people. But initially, the first person that you care about is yourself and your immediate family. And I believe very strongly that if one pursues a free market economy where you rely on individual freedom and individual liberty, that's really, for me, I'd really take this to really be a natural system for mankind to survive.
To what extent do you believe politicians and officials are preventing the liberation, emancipation and empowerment of black South Africans?
Well, I think if I really look at our country, I think for South Africans, for us as South African blacks, it's very interesting history we come from over the last 300 years, particularly the last years of the National Party rule, when they actually went out aggressively in making life difficult for us as black South Africans to really be able to do things on our own. And 1994 came, under the leadership of Mandela, promised us the future, and he did a fantastic job. We were really, everyone, we felt it in your blood, and we could see it, that I think we were a free nation. And really look at our situation the last few years. We now keep on really bringing more one legislation after the other. That's actually making it really very difficult for us as South Africans to really be able to display that talent, that natural talent that we have. For me, I have very serious reservations, in fact, concerns with legislative frameworks like affirmative actions or black economic empowerment. In fact, legislation that discriminates against other South Africans, because in that process of discriminating against others, people suffer. And I really look at the black South Africans, in particular, the over 8 million unemployed South Africans. They are unemployed because we're pursuing wrong legal framework. I believe very strongly that we've got to allow South Africans, black and white South Africans, to be first South Africans. We should not really come out with a legislative framework that discriminates against other South Africans. You can't run your economy on the basis of polarizing your people, or running an economy based on race. What you need to do, run the basis of South Africans being South Africans. Because during that process of running this economy properly, and the economy will grow. This economy of our country, honestly and truly, should really be growing the last few years, 5% plus. But now just to really imagine if the economy of this country grows at 5%, how much taxes the government will collect. And in the process of collecting those taxes and using those taxes properly, who's going to be the biggest beneficiaries? It's going to be black South Africans. Not because of their race, because of their numbers. Because if government spends the money correctly for South Africans, black people, because of their sheer numbers, are going to be the biggest beneficiaries. So I just don't really see the reason, the rationale behind government actually discriminating against other people. Because at the end of the day, what you do, you stifle the economy. And who are your biggest casualties? Unfortunately, because of sheer numbers, again, black people are the biggest casualties.
You are a vigorous proponent of the free enterprise system and recently made public the change in your political affiliation, publicly supporting the opposition Democratic Alliance. What does this party offer that, in your opinion, the ruling African Congress does not?
I think also the reason why I actually took that decision, and I thought long and hard about this, and at the same time I thought it was really very necessary. Because obviously really looking at the government with the tripartite alliance, with association of government with the Communist Party, with trade union organization, you have a party or government that's really not really sure in terms of what policies they're pursuing. So I think for me, the Democratic Alliance, as much as they're not perfect, but fortunately enough, I don't expect the perfectness in human beings. But they are as close as possible to some of my own value systems, particularly economic policies that they'd like to really pursue, to being business-friendly policies. And yeah, for that reason, for me, the DA by far appeals to really my aspiration than any other party in this country.
You are well placed to suggest solutions to facilitate positive change in South Africa's fortunes, having personally encountered the difficulties facing young black people. Please share with me some of your solutions.
Firstly, my belief very strongly, and that's something that I cover in my book, for this country's economy and democracy to succeed, we need active citizenship. The 50 million plus South Africans, we need each one of us to really be vigilant, be active citizens, because active citizenship will get the politicians to respect us. That's really, for me, the first thing that I believe we really need to do as South Africans. Secondly, I think, yes, encourage South Africa to pursue free market economy, where we have less government involvement in the economy as possible. At the same time, I believe very strongly that we need to pursue legislation and follow our constitution in treating the 50 million plus South Africans as equal citizens. You cannot really come out with legislative framework that discriminate against any member of our society or our country. So, you know, once you really start really pursuing legislation that divides people, the economy will suffer. And that's really what has really been happening to our country the last few years. You look at this country under Mandela's rule, the 5 years, coming from a very difficult past, but because you know what, he promised us the future. He allowed all of us as South Africans to be South Africans and be free. The economy supported him. We became actually the envy of the world. And once we started now reversing the gains made by Mandela, well, look at what's really happening to our economy. You know, the economic development and prosperity happens when people are free.
Would you agree with the opinion advanced by Yuri Meltsev in the foreword of your book that the ANC is trying to create a power base of angry and poor people who will give them their votes and support for promises of handouts from productive members of society?
Well, I think if you really follow really what's really happening in our country at the moment, it looks like the government really actually wants to really see people poor and dependent on them. Because I cannot really see any other reason as to why our government is so committed in getting people to believe in them, that they are the only ones who can solve their problems. You know, I've said this in public platforms so many times that I think it's an insult for anybody to actually think that black people don't have the ability to really be able to really stand on their own. It's really an insult to black people, because I think it has been proven all over the world over the last 200 years that the success of nations will only happen when people are free and have the ability to do things on their own. Less government intervention in their lives. why this government is pursuing policies making people so dependent on them. It's actually quite bizarre, and I think that's really some of the reasons why some people would obviously really believe as such. And I'm really one of those that actually believe that it looks like it's a government strategy to really get people dependent on it.
What is the way forward for a prosperous South Africa?
Prosperous South Africa, repeat once more, please South Africans, get involved in your lives. Get involved in politics. Politics is not just about being a politician. Get involved in the affairs. What happens in your street, what happens in your neighborhood, what happens in your country. Take special interest and really find a way to really get involved. Because by so doing, the political leadership will respect you and be sensitive to your aspirations.